Hey guys, Jeremy Knauff here with Spartan Media, and today we're going to make one of my favorite types of content, and that is breaking down a PR crisis. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is the CEO, Andy Byron, and the head of HR, Kristin Cabot, for the company Astronomer, who got caught having an affair at the Coldplay concert. Now, if you guys weren't in the loop on this, well, first of all, I don't know how you would not have heard about it. It was all over the news for a while. This was the kiss cam where these two were having an affair and showed up on the kiss cam and they scattered like roaches. So you guys will probably recognize these pictures. The progression of the pictures I find, frankly, absolutely hilarious. Check this out. So this is where it started. Now the reality starts to set in and the absolute horror that they felt once they got caught having their affair on the jumbo screen at the Coldplay concert. Not a great situation for either of them, and certainly not a great situation for the spouses of either of these two scumbags either. The public criticism was pretty much instant and incredibly intense, and frankly, very well justified. The CEO, Andy Byron, was pretty much immediately placed on leave, and shortly after that, he resigned. Initially, not much was said about her. Now, this is kind of ironic considering that HR is basically the office Karen, and they're supposed to prevent this kind of behavior. But here she was, elbow deep in adultery in a giant public setting, and ended up on the Jumbotron as a result of that. Now, eventually she was placed on leave, but the details of her departure were a lot less clear than the CEO's. Following the scandal, though, the behavior of each of them could not have been more different. So I'm going to run through a few pieces of news that have come out about this, and then we're going to talk about how the HR director, Kristin Cabot, handled this versus the CEO. I've already talked about the CEO. Basically, he was put on leave immediately, and then shortly after that, like within a day or two, resigned. And that was the end of it. He didn't come out and try and rehabilitate his image in any way. He didn't try to blame anybody else. He just took accountability and moved on with his life. End of story. Cabot, on the other hand, took a very different approach. And this is the opposite of how I recommend that people actually address a PR crisis. As far as her situation being different, like I said, she eventually later got put on leave and then was gone from the company. They didn't really say a lot about it. My speculation is that she was fired and probably fought a bit and tried to stay and tried to blame other people. And that's why the story never really came out. Otherwise, she would have said, hey, I resigned because I was wrong, which clearly she did not do. And then following how she's handled the PR crisis since then, it makes it very clear that that's not what she did. So she was fired against her will is what I've determined that I think happened. So there's a couple of really funny things that have come out of this. One of them was Gwyneth Paltrow was basically called out by Kristin Cabot for making a video, essentially a commercial for Astronomer, kind of mocking the situation a little bit, which I found absolutely hilarious. Cabot did not find it funny. No surprise there. When asked about the video, she told the Times, I was such a fan of her company, speaking of Gwyneth Paltrow, which seemed to be about uplifting women, she said. And then she did this. I thought, how dare she, after the beating she got for all the conscious uncoupling stuff. What a hypocrite, right? Where have we heard that before?
How dare you?
Yes, how dare you indeed. So if you have not seen the video, I'm going to pull that up here in just a second. Frankly, I think it's hilarious. I think it was a great way for Gwyneth Paltrow to get out there, get her name out in the media, and kind of capitalize on this situation and take a shot at, frankly, a shitty person in the process. So wins all the way around, in my opinion. Let's go ahead and play the video here.
Thank you for your interest in Astronomer. Hi, I'm Gwyneth Paltrow.
I've been hired on a very temporary basis to speak on behalf of the 300+ employees at Astronomer. Astronomer has gotten a lot of questions over the last few days, and they wanted me to answer the most common ones. Yes, Astronomer is the best place to run Apache Airflow, unifying the experience of running data, ML, and AI pipelines at scale. We've been thrilled so many people have a newfound interest in data workflow automation. As for the other questions we've received, yes, there is still room available at our Beyond Analytics event in September. We will now be returning to what we do best, delivering game-changing results for our customers. Thank you for your interest in Astronomer.
I absolutely love it. So the funny thing about this is she went on to say, when I say she, I'm talking about Cabot. She went on to say that she's finally breaking her silence, when the reality is she hasn't shut up about this since it's happened. But she came out, did a full court press tour, and tried to play the victim in this situation. Numerous articles have come out. 16 seconds that ruined her life. Well, yeah, lady, that was a decision you made. Your decision ruined your life, not 16 seconds that just randomly happened. There was another one in BBC, speaking of abuse, threats, and trying to find a new job. Poor lady, huh? This one, wow, drama queen. Woman in Coldplay kiss cam controversy says her 2 kids feared they were all going to die amid the harassment. Look, nobody was going to kill her kids because she was sleeping around. This is just a classic case of victim mindset and her trying to shift the blame, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do when you fuck up in a situation like this by having an affair with your boss in public, right? It's never a good look. It's an even worse look to go out here and then try to blame somebody else for your whorish tendencies. So not a good situation here. This one was a lot of fun. Coldplay kiss cam scandal woman admits a couple of high noons fueled the embarrassing career-ending moment. She was quoted in an article on Yahoo News. We were just dancing. I had had a few high noons. Andy was standing behind me and we were dancing and I grabbed him. Now, high noon could do the funniest thing ever and come out with a branded can for this. Maybe a tagline, something like, when swapping your beer for seltzer just isn't quite enough. It's not going to be a good look for her if she continues down this path, but High Noon absolutely should capitalize on this and run with this from a branding campaign, and it would blow up overnight, both because of the popularity of the story to begin with, but also because they're taking a really fun shot at something shitty that someone did. And it's the kind of thing that a lot of people would talk about. Now, there was an article that came out in the New York Times as well, the ritual shaming of the woman at the Coldplay concert. Well, look, maybe I'm a little bit old fashioned, but yeah, if you're whoring around with your boss and both of you are married, then you absolutely deserve all of the shame that you get. You should be ashamed of that. And I think we've kind of gotten to a point in society where people are a little bit broken and they think that everything should be okay and you should never be shamed or judged in any way, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But throughout the entire article, she just plays the victim and it's this woe is me, smallest violin ever. And this just makes her look exponentially worse than she already did, which frankly was pretty damn bad. Yahoo News actually cited a few other things as well, talking about, she described it as her big happy crush. You're not supposed to have a big happy crush when you're married, but I guess that slipped through the HR manuals here. Another quote, oh God, Andy's my effing boss. This is a bad look. Yes, fucking your boss is a bad look, especially in a giant public setting on a screen where everybody can end up seeing you and see what you're doing. Incredibly disrespectful to your family, and it shows horrible, horrible morals. So frankly, she deserves every bit of the shame and judgment that she's getting. So let's talk about how to actually handle a PR crisis. Hopefully none of you guys are stupid enough or immoral enough to do anything like this. But in the event that you find yourself in a less sleazy PR crisis of some sort, we're going to talk about what we need to do to resolve that situation with as little damage as possible. So the first thing is we have to always be honest and transparent. So don't sit there and try to shift the blame. Don't sit there and try to redirect people or change the subject. Own it, right? If you fucked up, own that, take accountability, and be a good person, right? It's not that hard, really, not for most of us anyway. The other thing we have to do is we have to determine the impact. Now, a PR crisis can range in scale. It could be something from a single review on your Google business listing, or it could be something like you getting caught cheating on the Jumbotron at a Coldplay concert and everything in between. So there's quite a scale. So what we have to determine is there going to be significant impact coming from this? So you want to ask, did you do something that other rational people could perceive as significantly wrong? In this case, I think most people would agree that yes, cheating on your spouse with your boss, or with anyone for that matter, is an egregious violation of ethics. Even if you've done nothing wrong, which is not the case in this situation, even if you've done nothing wrong, you still need to evaluate the damage potential that could be done to your brand. So we've all seen cases where some influencer gets online and spreads some lie about somebody, or the media tells a story and either they're reporting incorrectly or they're flat out lying. That happens far more than it should in both cases. And if that happens, then it's very easy for significant damage to be done to your brand. And even if somebody then comes back later and retracts it, whether that be by editing that article or actually coming out with a new article or a new TV segment saying, hey, we were wrong about this and this isn't actually what happened and here's what really happened. Almost nobody ever sees the retraction. What they see is what was first seared into their mind, the first story that they saw about it. So if you've done something wrong, then absolutely you're going to need to take action. If you haven't done something wrong, but there is potential for brand damage there, then you still have to do something to resolve this problem. So at that point, we have to strategize our campaign. Now you've got a couple of paths here. If you've done nothing wrong, you can get out in the media, get out on social, and take an overwhelming positivity approach, right? Just swarm the internet with all the great things you're doing. Swarm the internet with all the success stories. Swarm the internet with your version of the story. Just share all the good news out there. This tends to work a lot better when you're being unfairly attacked. If you try to use this when there is a legitimate problem, it's going to backfire, which is exactly what's happening with Cabot. Now, if you did something wrong, the only thing that you can do is make a full public apology, right? This is full accountability. Yes, I did this. Yes, it was wrong. Take accountability, talk about what happened, talk about what you're doing, how it happened, talk about what you're doing to fix the problem if that's something that can be fixed, or how you're removing yourself from that environment so that that environment no longer has that problem. If you fail to do this, it's going to backfire on an epic scale. Now, this is something that we call the Streisand effect. When you try to get people to not talk about a thing, that tends to make people talk about it a lot more. Now, this term is the outcome of an attempt that Barbara Streisand took in trying to suppress information about it was photos of her home. And so people had photographed a mansion that she owned out in California, and she didn't want anyone to see that. And she went on this massive campaign to try and get all that information taken out of the media. I don't remember if the internet was a thing back then, but she was basically trying to stifle all of that information. And what ended up happening was it drew far more attention to her mansion, drew far more attention to her story and connecting her to that mansion. And it had the opposite effect of what she was trying to do. So we don't want to try and just silence the story. We don't want to try and just ignore it. It's going to get a lot worse if you do that. So if you have a problem that has to be resolved, then you have to first prepare your talking points. So what is the problem and how did it happen? What are you doing to take accountability, right? If in a case like this, she should resign, just like the CEO did. They should put new leaders in place. The board of directors could then come out and talk about what they're doing to prevent this kind of thing from happening in the future. Are they implementing new HR policies? Is there a new HR person who's coming in to replace Cabot also a whore? If that's the case, then that's probably not going to work so well. But we want to talk about all of the things we're implementing to prevent this kind of thing from happening and ensure that it never happens again. At that point, we've got our talking points. We know what we're going to say. Now we have to identify which media outlets are likely to be interested in this story. And then we're going to sort them by the ones that you already have relationships with and the ones that are likely to be sympathetic to your story. So obviously, a lot of outlets may be interested in a story, but some of them may hate you. They may hate your company. They may hate the industry that you're in. You don't want to approach them because you're not going to get a fair shake. So you want to find the outlets that are sympathetic to you, and those are where you're going to pitch. Now, in a PR crisis, time is always of the essence. You have to act fast, you have to act aggressive, and you have to act at a large scale. So we've got our talking points, we've taken accountability. Now we're going to start pitching the media. We get out there, we start pitching, we follow up. If this is a story that's breaking in the news, it's all over the place. This is the kind of scenario where you can follow up a little bit more frequently than you can if you're pitching run-of-the-mill stories. So this is the correct way to handle a PR crisis. You take accountability, you get your story together, and you start pitching the media and get your story out there in a positive way. But without taking accountability, it's going to backfire, which is exactly what we've seen with Kristin Cabot here, and we can see the outcome of it. There's all of these news stories. Clearly, she's hired a very large, very successful, very effective PR firm to tell her story. And she's got these amazing stories in all of these major publications painting her as this poor woman who was just blindsided through no fault of her own by this situation. And if you look at the online discourse around it, everybody is talking about what a horrible person she is. It's not going the way that she wants it to. It's not going the way that she thought it would. And it's not going the way that the PR firm thought that they could make it go. And that's because they failed to do one critical thing, and that is actually take accountability for the wrong that you've done. So I hope you guys found that useful. If you did, I would love it if you'd share this with someone. Absolutely drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. And if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button here on YouTube. All right. Thanks, guys. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.